All right, I think we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome and thank you for joining us for this special intergenerational climate action event. I'm Jen Chandler, the Director of Elders Climate Action, and I am so proud to be welcoming all of you to this final event in our third annual Intergenerational Month. We've been working in collaboration with a number of youth allies across the nation from various organizations like Change the Chamber, Lobby for Climate, Sunrise Movement, and Fridays for Future, meeting regularly over the past 6 months to discuss intergenerational action and explore action together. We've developed social media content, organized a podcast episode with the Way Forward Regenerative Conversations podcast, and we've worked together to develop this two-part series of conversations. Tonight, we're celebrating this intergenerational collaboration with a 90-minute roundtable discussion that will highlight the stories and efforts happening across generations. Our speakers will explore how we can combine our voices for greater political power. And I'm confident we will all be inspired by each of these passionate climate activists. I hope their stories will inspire you to dig deeper and become an even more engaged individual, not only seeking climate solutions in your own life, but more importantly, seeking collective action, the type of actions that will help change the trajectory of the future to one where clean air is abundant, our climate is stable, and life can thrive. Our intergenerational team has prepared a wonderful list of questions to ask one another. If you have any questions for the panelists, please add your questions for the speakers in our Q&A box. We'll take a few questions as time allows. Our panelists might also respond directly to your questions through the Q&A box, so please put them there. And we encourage you to actively engage in the discussion by responding to our questions using the chat. Both the chat and the Q&A boxes can be found on the bottom of your screen. If you just hover your mouse over your screen, you should see those boxes. This evening, we are joined by two moderating participants for our discussion who will help guide the conversation around our table. First, I'd like to introduce Tony Passino. Tony loves the outdoors, and it's through this love that he is motivated to be a National Climate Fellow with Change the Chamber, one of our partners we've worked with here tonight. Currently, he helps lead the Changemaker training program and the Changemaker training team, and he contributes through writing blog posts. As of June of 2024, he is pursuing a PhD in business administration with a focus in organizations and social change at UMass Boston. And when he's not studying or working with CTC, he can be found in a tent or on a bike with his partner, Olivia. Tony has been an instrumental member of the planning team for these sessions and has been working with us since last fall. And he's one of the speakers featured on the podcast episode with The Way Forward. And second, I have the distinct honor of introducing my own mother, Hazel Chandler, who is a founding member of Elders Climate Action and who is the co-founder of the Arizona chapter of Elders Climate Action. In addition, she works as an Arizona field coordinator for Moms Clean Air Force, another one of ECA's partners. And through her work with Elders Climate Action in Arizona, she started and currently leads the Arizona Climate Action Coalition, which is an interfaith, intergenerational, and multicultural coalition of more than 20 climate groups in Arizona. She's a mom, my mom, a grandmother, and recently a great grandmother 3 times over, who has been advocating for a livable planet, clean air, climate solutions, and environmental issues since her oldest son was a baby, and I was just a hopeful thought. She is committed to creating a loving, peaceful, sustainable world, and her work has been featured in the New York Times, People, Yes Magazine, Public News Service, the Arizona Republic, and others. So Hazel, I'm going to start with you, and let me just pose this first question. Is there something specific that brought you into climate action, and when did you get involved? And can you share a quick example of a successful intergenerational campaign that you've been a part of?
Well, My days with climate action or environment go clear back to when I was nursing my son, who is several years older than Jen and a grandfather. Um, I picked up a piece of paper that started talking about global warming, and it was from a fossil fuel company. And they were saying that if we don't stop burning fossil fuels, we would be have an unlivable world by 2050 and 2100. And what I saw, what I read about is happening right now, and we are only in 2024. We have a long ways to go before we get to 2050. So that's when I got involved, and I've been off and on involved all those times. One of the things that is most memorable for me is when we did the Moms Clean Air Force Elders Climate Action Plan in DC. And we had cross-generational, multi-generational, multicultural a team that was lobbying together. We had a number of Hispanics. We had a 6-month-old baby, and people of all ages, including about 8 or 9 young people. And that was the most powerful. I had lobbied in a number of times. That was the most powerful event I have ever been to. And I found that it's memorable for the people that we met with, including Representative Gallego, who held the baby through the whole appointment, and the stories about Ann Kirkpatrick, the 4-year-old that took over her desk and started acting like she was the representative. These are the power moments when we really make an impact. And it's so incredible to be here with you, to be joining my daughter in this. She was raised to be an activist. So thank you. I want to welcome everyone here. I want to ask the same question of Tony. Tony, do you want to go ahead and?
Sure, absolutely, Hazel. And I love, your response is kind of foreshadowing part of what we're going to be talking about today is, the power of, what happens when we show up as an intergenerational group when we meet with legislators. And so some of these things we're going to be talking about in more detail today through some of the examples and questions. But hi, everyone. My name's Tony Passino. Again, I'm a climate fellow with Change of Chamber Lobby for Climate. I'm so excited to be here today. Thank you all for coming into this space to join us here. Thank you to Jen and Ariana and the whole Elders Climate Action team, as well as our panelists. I'm excited for the conversation. For me, my story is it started when I was in high school. I was like the kid who slept in class every day, and I didn't care a lot about a lot of things. And that all changed when my grandpa died. I was 17, and I saw how it impacted my mom. And my grandpa and my mom were like best friends. They talked on the phone every day. And when he was gone, she lost her best friend, and like that hurt me a lot because I care about my mom so deeply. And I started thinking to myself, like, how could someone have such a big impact on someone's life? And so I started to get to know my grandpa after he died. And, I met with my grandma, and I met with some of his other friends, and I asked all of these questions to get to know him. And I saw that not only did he have an impact on my mom, but he had an impact on the entire community from where I'm from, through years of service and different forms of activism, as well as he was a family and children's counselor. And so that kind of inspired me to start asking questions of like, how can I have an impact on the world? How can, I fill the shoes that he left and have an impact on my mom, as well as other people in the community? And it's been a journey ever since then of trying to figure out where I fit in and where I can best, create positive impact. And I think, when it comes to the issues that are facing young people, all of us today, climate change is is one of the big ones. And this is something that's always, I've always been passionate about. I've always had a strong connection to nature. And it's one of those things that, if you have a strong connection to it, you want to fight for it. And yeah, so that's where I'm at today. And I think an example of something, an intergenerational example, is the work that I've been doing with Change a Chamber around building this environmental change maker certificate training. It's really been a collaboration between a lot of us younger climate fellows, as well as our mentors, Deborah Rowe and Priscilla, who have really been showing up and meeting with us every Fridays for the past year and a half to plan this thing out. And I'm really proud of the work that we've been able to do together. And, some of the things that, I've recognized as being really powerful when it comes to intergenerational conversations is the different perspectives that we all bring to the table. And I know that that's going to be part of what we talk about here today. And yeah, thanks again for showing up and coming out today. And then, yeah, I guess I since I'm talking right now, I can just let's go over to David if you want to share the same question. What brought you into climate action, and when did you get involved, as well as can you briefly discuss a sort of successful intergenerational campaign or project that you've been part of?
Well, I've been a nature lover for a long time, and then I married my wife, who surpassed me in her love of nature. She was a student researcher for Jane Goodall in Africa and studied chimpanzees, and the wonderful stories that she can share. And it's really been a delight to partner with her about our concerns regarding the natural environment and how to preserve it. Currently, I'm working with a group of friends and companions here in Santa Cruz, and we're also working with some students at nearby UCSC, and we're basically building a climate change video game. And my background was really, I was hired at Cabrillo Community College, which is local here. And I was hired to be a counselor for special needs students and set up a variety of programs along that line. And became interested in using computers as adaptive devices for special needs folks, and started one of the first adaptive computer labs in the state. Anyway, I continued to get involved with climate change activities and in a number of areas that I won't go into, but it's just close to my heart, and I'm a devotee.
We now have another mom and daughter group, Eliza Clark and Helen Mancini. Would you like to answer the same question? Introduce yourself, each of you, and how you got involved, and an example of of climate action that you would like to give us.
Hi, I'm Helen. I'm a high school student, a 17-year-old climate organizer from New York City. I first got involved when I was in middle school, and I went to a climate protest, and I saw so many young people from Fridays for Future in New York City leading the big massive walkouts in 2019. And I seen Greta Thunberg, who had just, taken a boat across the ocean to come to New York and to talk at the UN, and to see her speak there, and to see so many different young people speak in front of that huge crowd. It inspired me so much. And COVID happened right after that, but once I started high school, I knew that I wanted to do something, and I wanted to become a part of that. And when I joined Fridays for Future in New York City, I realized that it was still it was still alive, and it was still this informal group of just young people who were trying to plan marches, plan strikes, and they were doing an awesome job at it, even though it wasn't getting the same sort of media attention it did before COVID. And I watched it since then build up from a organization that had to pick up the pieces after going completely online to a organization that was able to help organize a 75,000 person march in this past September, and also join so many powerful coalitions, become a real like part of the New York climate movement in the state level, but also in the federal level and even in the city level, and all of those campaigns. And it's really, I mean, it was not me alone, it was all these young people who had joined and had the same idea that I did, but I was able to be part of that, and it was really, really powerful. But every campaign that we've been successful at, we've done it with other people, and a lot of those other groups are intergenerational groups. I think one that I'd like to talk about, it's kind of a timely one, is a lot of it's the New York primaries today. And so we're like incredibly involved. The Working Families Party, Sunrise, these movements endorse candidates. We endorse candidates who want to put in Albany climate legislation as their main priority. And going out and canvassing during your summer break is really hard. And at the same time, if you're older, going out and canvassing in a heat wave, it was a heat wave this week right before the primaries, is really hard. But so many people are out. And a lot of times it's just because you're just passionate. It doesn't matter what age you are. And I think, and so many people, I mean, we'll see tonight, but so many times the grassroots coalitions have elected real climate leaders. And when we're in Albany during the session, we get to talk to them. They're on our side. They're sponsoring the bills that we need them to sponsor. And I think that that's an example of intergenerational collaboration for sure, because those policy members are also, or those policymakers, those representatives are also part of it too. Mom, do you want to go?
Sure. Hi, I'm Eliza Clark. I'm Helen's mom. That's my #1 claim to fame. But I'm from New York City, but I always wanted to get out of the city, and I spent some time working on organic farms in college. And that was how I kind of got involved in became more aware of the environmental movement in the 90s. And then aware of climate change. And we took the girls, we have 3 kids, took them to the People's Climate March, and took Helen to see Greta when she was, 11. But for me, I didn't really get involved as an organizer until about 2 years ago, because I was, we would go when Helen would organize these marches, these strikes with the other Fridays kids, and we would go as parents and bring her little sister. But we just didn't see, I was always looking around thinking, where are the other parents, And because there was just tons of high schoolers and college students, and actually sometimes there were older people who were being marshals, and helping, which was very cool to see. But I was like, where are their parents? Why aren't they here, cheering them on, like they would at like a soccer match or something, and so I happened to be, someone saw me with her little sister and said, you want to sign up for Climate Families? And I didn't know what that was, but I signed the paper, and since then I became involved in this group called Climate Families New York City, and I'm now part of the leadership, which is totally an honor. And it's a group that does, all we do is intergenerational, because we do all of our activism with our kids, with younger children, who need to be with parents. Of course, Helen is completely independent, but but we also have a 6-year-old, and it's all mostly moms, but just families with younger children doing actions, and very we try to do powerful direct action, but with children, that is child friendly, developmentally appropriate, but also very impactful, as impactful as we can. And we've also, when we can, in New York, we do collaborative stuff with Fridays and lots of other groups that are all lobbying for the same kinds of things. So, including the march, which was amazing. There was a whole kids section for that. So I'll leave it there.
Well, thank you so much for sharing, Eliza and Helen and David. I think we've got a really good crew of folks here, and I think it's going to be an interesting conversation. So yeah, with that, I'd like to jump into it, and I'd actually like to start with you, Helen, and then I'm going to ask you a question also, Eliza. And you were kind of talking about it a little bit in your response just now. And so, Helen, I'd love to hear a little bit more about the process, the planning process for the March on Fossil Fuels in the fall of 2023. And when it comes to intergenerational conversations like the one we're having here today, I'm curious to know what were some of the unique qualities that the different generations brought in to that experience that were relevant.
Yeah. So, I mean, I got involved in the planning process in April, and it was like first just an idea of some sort of mass action to take to send President Biden a message about the fossil fuel approvals that we'd seen with the Mountain Valley Pipeline and Willow that were really angering young people, but also just everyone, because they didn't seem like they matched up with, progressive climate policy that people wanted and that people had voted for. And uh, after getting together a coalition of groups and just hopping on some calls, I mean, there was people of all different age groups there. There's people from big organizations that have more money, that have more experience, that have planned marches before. There's a lot of new young people just entering the field, really ambitious, but they're professional. This is their full-time job. And then there's like community organizers who have other jobs that are coming in, speaking on behalf of their communities. And then there's young people who lead like pretty more informal organizations, and they are joining and trying to give their input. And it was a big collaborative effort, a lot of discussion, and they could go on and on when really deciding something that's going to be this big. And I think so many different skill sets are needed. You don't really think about it when you're at a march, but there's so much that goes into it when you're thinking about who's going to like be in charge of all the art, who's going to design all of that, who's going to make the music, who's going to be at the stage, who knows the routes in New York City, who's on the ground, who can be on a spreadsheet. Like, you have to ask yourself all those questions, and different age groups have different capacities to do that work, and different age groups have different capacities to bring young people to a climate march and to know how much space you're going to need for a bunch of strollers. Whereas like, I know how to get high schoolers to come to a march, and how many blocks they're going to take up, and what kind of art they want to hold, and what kind of chants they want to say. And so we all had to bring that experience, and we all had to take leadership in that experience, and that was a really powerful thing. And it led to a really great march that really like made an impact. I think a lot of times we don't connect marches to the impacts that they make, but President Biden felt pressure on fossil fuels and still really does. He paused LNG exports in Louisiana, and that was a big part because of all of the pressure on fossil fuels. And so many lobby meetings were set up. We got people to listen to us, and it became a federal priority that we weren't going to just take electric vehicles. We were going to name fossil fuel projects that we saw being approved, we saw in the Gulf South and Alaska, and we're going to fight against them. And that was a paradigm shift that really did happen in this country, as a result of so much organizing, not just that march, but so much community organizing and so much work in the media and everything like that.
Yeah, that's so, thank you so much for sharing. I think the impact of the march and, the planning process, it's really a testament to the power of, when we come together across generations to share our different perspectives and we can contribute to whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's planning an event or an entire campaign, in different ways. We bring different things to the table. So it's really great to hear your experience with that. And so I kind of want to transition a little bit and ask you, Eliza. You talked about it a little bit in your intro as well. You talked about the soccer match, and about why don't parents show up for younger people in the way that they might for a soccer match. And I'm really curious to hear your perspective, and I'd love to have you speak about the importance of bringing parents into the climate movement. And I'd also love to hear your perspective about younger children when it comes to this too, because I know you have younger children who are interested and involved in this kind of work as well.
Younger children. What was the first part?
I just about the importance of bringing parents into the climate.
Bringing parents in, yeah. I find it. I think it's incredibly important, but I'm still a little bit struggling with how to do it for parents of teenagers. I think parents of kids who are being born now, and it's unavoidable that you're thinking about, okay, what is the world going to be looking like for these kids when they grow up? And so many, even here in New York, there's kids that we experienced the forest fire smoke last year. There's been a lot of different flooding events in the city, especially in Brooklyn. And so I think it's on everyone's mind, whether they want to really acknowledge it and act on it or not, And so I think that's why Climate Families has been successful in recruiting people, bringing people in. But I did once try to recruit some of the parents of Helen's peers in Fridays. And, there's a little bit of a disconnect there. Sometimes I don't, and I don't know why exactly. That's why we wrote the Teen Vogue piece, because I was trying to think through, that problem. I think there's just a lot of fear associated with thinking about this for your kids, and a little bit of denial is, helps to not feel that fear. But we've got to work through it. It just is. Yeah. So I don't really have I wish I had a better answer to that. And I would love to hear if anyone else does. I mean, younger children are great because they can, you don't have to put it, they can just be there and be like, I love nature, I love the earth, I don't want, trash is bad, pollution is bad. I mean, they just bring that innocence and joy to to them, it's sort of like, of course we should be doing this, and protest doesn't have to be, I mean, as I'm sure everyone knows, doesn't have to be, angry, it doesn't have to be, it can be, you can make a point without a confrontation, and children bring a lot of joy and fun and theater and, to that. So I think when you have kids with you, you need snacks, you need, some kind of theatrical toys, props, you need songs, you need chants, and it works really well.
Yeah, they have dinosaur costumes for the kids. That's something they did for the march, and those are really cute. And they make a statement by also engaging kids. And also when you're protesting against I don't know, bank CEOs who have so much money invested in the fossil fuel industry, which Climate Families does all the time. when they see kids are the ones challenging them, they listen.
Here she is.
Oh,
Here's our,
sorry. That was
Hi.
We were
this is
talking
our
about.
littlest climate activist here.
okay.
Yeah, well, thank you both for sharing. Only if we could find those toys and those things that would just bring the adults, the parents right into the movement too, and motivate them to action. And so, Hazel, I'd love to hear you kind of speak about your perspective on this. Is there anything you'd want to add to the conversation around how to bring parents into the movement, or around children in the movement?
Helen, Eliza, your comments are incredibly important. And my daughter was raised from on the hip activist as a baby on up. So she couldn't escape being an activist, I don't think. And she learned so much from it as a lead, to become a leader, to become able to speak to groups. And, the learning is just incredible for kids. But I just want to speak a little bit to moms and moms' work. Moms has been around, Moms Clean Air Force has been around since for about 14 years now. And it's organized on family groups, moms and kids and young teenagers and college kids, as well as also because they partnered with us, grandparents as well as a really big important part. This is powerful. It's really, really powerful. It's teaching these family groups how to make their voices heard in a very non-confrontational, safe environment for kids to be involved. And it's allowing kids to take a leadership role at a very young age. When the carbon rules were announced by the EPA, one of our mom's 10-year-olds introduced Michael Reagan, the EPA administrator. She was amazing. And he's actually asked her to introduce him on a number of other occasions. She's a very self-confident young person, but I don't think she would have gotten to that place if she hadn't been very active with Moms Clean Air Force and their work. We just have to remember that we have to unite our voices across all groups of people: moms, dads, grandmas, grandparents, aunts, uncles, dog parents, etc., etc. Every single version. We have to unite our voices, because this is the most critical issue that it has ever come before our society, and we have to make sure that our voices are heard in a united way. Thank you. I think we want to move on to David. David, I have a question for you. What are some common misunderstandings or gaps between generations regarding climate action, and how might they be addressed?
Okay. Well, I've done a bit of research here to educate myself as well, and I'll give credit where it's due at the end here. But so, what are some common misunderstandings or gaps between generations regarding climate action? Common misunderstandings and gaps between generations in climate action often stem from differences in experiences, perspectives, and communication styles. Addressing these gaps requires fostering mutual understanding, respect, and effective communication. Here are some common misunderstandings and strategies to address them. Number one, perception of urgency. Older generations may view climate change as a gradual process, having witnessed environmental changes over decades. Younger generation often sees climate change as an immediate crisis requiring urgent and radical action. Approaches to activism. Older generations tend to prefer structured and incremental changes through established political and institutional channels. Younger generation often prefer or favors more direct grassroots and sometimes radical approaches to affect change quickly. Also, third item is technological and communication preferences. Older generations may not be as comfortable with digital tools and social media, preferring traditional media and face-to-face communication. Younger generation leverages digital platforms extensively for organizing, communicating, and mobilizing support. Number 4 is credibility and experience. Older generations may view their long-term experience as providing deeper insights and strategies. The younger generation often feels that their fresh perspectives and innovative approaches are necessary for effective action. Finally, the fifth item is values and priorities. Older generations might prioritize stability, economic growth, and gradual adaptation. Younger generation often prioritizes sustainability, environmental justice, and systemic change. So what are the strategies to address these gaps? There'll be 7 actual items. One is to facilitate open dialogues, intergenerational conversations, create spaces for structured dialogues where each generation can share their views, experiences, and concerns. This can help build understanding and empathy. Second item on this, facilitating open dialogues, is storytelling sessions, encouraging sharing personal stories about environmental experiences and activism, helping to humanize and contextualize each generation's perspective. So, true strategy is promote mutual learning. Skill sharing workshops help. Organizing workshops where older and younger activists can teach each other relevant skills. For example, younger activists can provide social media training while older activists can offer insights into policy advocacy. Also, mentorship programs, establish mentorship programs where older and younger activists can be paired to facilitate knowledge exchange and build stronger relationships. Collaborative projects, joint initiatives, design projects that require collaboration across generations, ensuring that both perspectives are incorporated in planning and execution. Form diverse teams for climate action initiatives, ensuring representation from different age groups to balance experience and innovation. Number 4 here is enhance communication channels. Multi-program, multi-platform strategies use a mix of traditional and digital communication channels to reach all age groups effectively. Also, inclusive communication. Develop communication strategies that are accessible and appealing to all generations, avoiding jargon and ensuring clarity. Number 5 here is acknowledge and respect differences. Celebrate contributions. Recognize and celebrate the contributions of all generations in the climate movement, highlighting successful intergenerational collaborations, just as Helen has been talking about here. Also address, let's see, number 6 is focus on common goals, a unified vision, emphasize shared goals and values, such as the desire for a sustainable and equitable future to foster a sense of common purpose. Also, consensus building, used consensus building techniques in decision-making processes to ensure that all voices are heard and respected. Finally, leverage institutional support. Organizational policies encourage organizations and institutions to adopt policies that promote intergenerational collaboration and address potential biases. Also, funding and resources. Secure funding and resources specifically aimed at supporting intergenerational climate action projects. By actively addressing these misunderstandings and gaps, climate action can become more inclusive and effective, benefiting from the strengths and perspectives of all generations.
Thank you so much, David. Tony, can you speak to the power imbalances in intergenerational work? What does this mean? What does it look like? And how does it feel? And how have you navigated power imbalances to find success?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to talk about that as someone who has been in spaces and has had to navigate those things. I think that that's something that a lot of young people see when they enter some of these spaces. Is that because of power imbalances, it might feel uncomfortable to speak up and speak out, or it might make you feel like your ideas don't matter, which they certainly do matter, and you have a valuable perspective that can contribute to the conversation. And I think that there's things actually, and it's the responsibility oftentimes of the people who have the power in the room to create space and to make people feel comfortable and like they're welcome and open to share. And so that's, I think, something that we should all recognize, because there's different kinds of power. There's not just power that comes with being older, right? There's power that comes with other factors associated with gender or race, right? That we should recognize and call out as we enter into these spaces. And we should consider the ways in which we may or may not create an open and welcoming space, because that directly impacts our ability to work together. And so when I think, and this is kind of like, maybe a little bit of how we work towards a space where we do see each other as equals, is just something that recognizing that we all have a perspective and recognizing that we all have something to contribute to the larger group. And I think it comes down to making a commitment to see each other as equals, to see each other as people who can contribute to whatever it is that we're working on. I think, someone has probably written a book on this, or lots of books on power imbalances. And we make mistakes too. And I think it just comes down to a commitment to work together. So thanks for asking that question.
Thanks so much, Tony. That's a really important answer. We need to move forward. So I'm going to ask Eliza, just do you have one real quick thought on this issue that you would like to point out? Maybe 30 seconds or less, and so we can move on and get to some of the other questions.
I think I'll just speak on a personal level. I think one thing that I have more of, for example, than Helen, is like freedom with my own time, because I'm an adult. I'm not in high school trying to do all that, and I also won't be feeling the impacts of climate change in the same way, in my lifetime as she will in her lifetime and her kids' lifetime. And so I feel my job is to support the young people. And I feel that they need to be, that they're already leading in so many ways. I feel it's my responsibility to show up and to support. So that's why I'm doing this, with whatever power I have, although I don't feel that powerful, honestly.
You're very powerful.
Thanks for sharing that. And, I want to transition a little bit. And so, when we're thinking about, how we work together and maybe how we create a space where we can work together. There's also, I think, some other things that we can think about. So beyond the interpersonal sort of like how we work together, there's like what tools do we use to work together with one another? And so I think that there's an opportunity to think about, I mean, for instance, we're all together in a Zoom session right now, working together and having a conversation about, you know, this topic, right? And we had many of these conversations in building and planning this event. And, you know, Helen, I would imagine that there was a lot of, you know, different things that you did in order to plan the march, right? There was probably a lot of meeting that were happening behind the scene. There was a lot of different tools that you were using. I'd be really curious to hear from your perspective. You know, what are some of those tactics or those tools, you know, that youth are using that elders could adopt to become, you know, more effective or impactful?
Well, I think like social media and online stuff is sort of an obvious answer. And honestly, I don't think it's always completely true that that's the way organizing needs to be done nowadays just because we have it. I mean, don't get me wrong, Zoom is really like useful and helpful. You can connect with people and you really need to do that to organize, especially on like a federal level. But I think it's tiring to be on Zoom all the time. And I think that can be felt across generations. And something that I found to be the most effective when organizing high schoolers is to just have people get to know each other face to face, and to like we always like do picnics in parks and we play music and things like that and make it fun, teenagery, except we're talking about the climate crisis. And um, I think that, you know, some of those are age specific activities, like they attract different people, but I think that like, you know, meeting people where they are, like, you know, going to like basketball courts or like parks where a lot of like teenagers are and like things like that, like going to community spaces, like that's how we organize and it's really helpful for us. And making things like discussing things within our own like language and lingo and what makes sense to us. I think that is really big in organizing young people because friendships, I think, are really what keep people in movements, and relationships keep people in movements, and those can be created in any generation. And I think that that comes with being really open. I mean, I think this is something that everybody could use, especially adults in professional settings, is just be more informal. Be like this, it doesn't have to be all like serious all the time. You don't have to be so articulate and give long speeches about why things don't matter. It can be casual conversations, and you can organize like that too. I mean, even if you're planning a really big event, even if you've got money involved that you're going to spend, you can be informal, and it doesn't like I think that makes people feel a lot more included actually. If you have no experience in this kind of stuff, it feels like you're entering some professional environment that's about tackling the climate crisis, you're going to get scared away. So I think that's something that youth really have a handle on. It really brings like that's why kids love going to protests. It feels safe, feels inclusive, it feels like a good vibe. And I feel like adults in professional settings should really start doing that, because it would bring a lot more people into the movement, and it connects across class. I think a big part of that too. It doesn't have just people who are college educated and talk in a certain way or not. You know, it should just be like everybody, and on a more human level.
Yeah, I think the chat is speaking to your points, and I would agree with what they're saying in there. I think, you know, what you say kind of resonates with you know, what we were talking about earlier with the power imbalances, because when you create an informal space, we can show up and we can leave all of that stuff at the door, those different statuses, or you know, our experience, who we are, and then when we do that, we can see each other as human and we can build connections with one another. And so when, you know, doing this work, having those connections is so important, because and not only it keeps us, you know, that informal space, you know, invites more people into the door, right? It brings more people into the movement. But when you have those connections, it's not just about the work anymore. It's about those relationships that work so hard to build, right? And you develop friendships through doing this kind of work too, and those keep you involved in the movement. So yeah, thanks for sharing that. I think, yeah.
Tony, I think it's really important. Here in Arizona, we did Faces of Climate Action town halls across Arizona in 2019. And we had 5 of them, and they were all wonderful. It was intergenerational, multicultural, and interfaith approach, and they were all wonderful. But the 5th one was done in Tucson, and it ended up the same week as the youth climate strike. And I made a decision to scrap what I had planned for the town halls and put the kids in charge. And that was the most powerful event. It was incredibly powerful. We had elected officials, including Raul Grijalva, there, and several others. And I've heard over and over again about how it was one of the most powerful things that they have ever been to. Representative Grijalva brings it up every single time we meet with him. He loves it. So, it's really important to us as elders, give the kids the support they need, but give them the ability to organize the events themselves with our support. We did another one just recently last fall. It was incredibly great. Again, the kids led the way. We had probably 150 people there. It was really a great event. So just, I know we need to move on, but I just wanted to make sure we got that, because that's a really important thing, is that we as elders can help them with the details, right? We as parents, but we should let them have the latitude to do the planning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it also speaks to part of the conversation that we had when planning this. So part of it was talking about the different tactics and strategies that have been used over the years, and how maybe some of those have fallen out of favor, and then there might be some new tools that we might be using. And so I think kind of what I'm hearing from you, Hazel, and you, Helen, as well, is that sometimes things merge together. And so sometimes we might use social media in this way, we might use Zoom in this way, but that doesn't mean that those in-person interactions or those one-on-one conversations aren't important. Those are still super important. One thing that I've found that's really been, I think, important for my own approach to doing this kind of work is just having one-on-one Zoom calls with people, to just get to know people and ask them how their day is going, and what brings them to this movement, and kind of have a conversation like we're having here. Because I know that oftentimes when we get into these group settings, it really does quickly just become about the work. But it doesn't have to be, and we can create space to be able to have those conversations. And so I think we can kind of transition a little bit. I guess I could just open this question up broadly, Eliza, or even Helen, to just what advice or suggestions you might have for people in the audience who want to do intergenerational work, but maybe don't know how. So maybe what advice or suggestions you might have for engaging people across generations.
I can give an example of something we're working on right now, that is a cross-generational event. Maybe if it goes well, others could too. But we're right now in New York City, there's something called the Summer of Heat going on, which is an ongoing, pretty much daily protests at mainly at Citibank, but also at other big financial institutions. A lot of civil disobedience and going on. But our group, Climate Families, is planning an action with Third Act, which I assume you all know about, where it's going to be like a elders and kids kind of story time about climate and environment, and in front of the city headquarters in the plaza where all these actions are taking place, and with banners and maybe some singing, and I think we're gonna bring a card to the front door, so that's something we've been planning for a couple of weeks with Third Act, so with the elders, and we're really excited about that as a sort of, an explicitly intergenerational sort of, just I think it's symbolically, will be powerful. I mean, there's so many powerful actions happening at City, but the idea is really to put all kinds of people, in front of the bank to make this point that everyone feels urgently about this.
Yeah, Summer of Heat is really, really cool campaign. I encourage people to check it out if you can. There's a lot of coverage happening, and it's definitely making a difference. It's a little bit different than some of the other sort of activism that people here might be used to, because it isn't like focusing on policymakers and like a political target, but banks actually do listen to public pressure, despite what they tried to say, like for people try to say they don't care, they don't listen. When we saw like specific protests against like the ECOP pipeline in Europe, I think like 25 banks dropped it and 26 insurers dropped it. When there's specific targeted pipelines, when there's projects, when there's outrage, banks drop fossil fuel projects. It's been studied, and this is what they're doing, and what my group is doing too with Summer of Heat, which is being led by a bunch of great organizations, is that they're getting people from all across the country. Like right now, a bunch of people from the Gulf South are here. Last week it was Youth Week, and that way we can see so many different generations and communities coming together for protests. But I think for my advice, or for like a tip on how to work across generations, I think that was a really good example, because storytelling is something that appeals to both young children and like elders who can tell the story. And I think that that's just like an example of just an action or a symbolic thing and event that can bring people together. And we should just look for more of those, and that can really bring generations together. And also like reach out to the groups that are already there. I saw like one question about like how to like create a group in your school, or how to, even if it's how to create a group of like your own elders. Those groups already exist. I think it's about joining those groups, finding those communities, and once you're in them, trying to work across them. Because like Third Act being able to work with climate families is so great. They have the infrastructure to do that, to take care of their own communities, to work with other communities, and that's an intergenerational connection they get to build. And there's so many youth groups, so many family groups, so many elders groups. There's like a place for everyone, and if there isn't a place, you can make your own place with your own group, and then reach out, because organizations are nothing without each other fighting for campaigns. So yeah.
Wow. The voices of our young people. I mean, I have so much hope for our future, just because I look at these young people, I listen to them, and I hear them speak, and I hear the wisdom and the leadership that they're taking. And amazing, Tony and Helen, you're just, you guys blow me away. And I see these kids that we've been working with going on and going to college, getting degrees, and this is so exciting. I think it's time to start wrapping up, but I want everyone to have a final moment to make a statement. And so I would like to hear from all of you, very short, but what are your hopes for future generations? Or what are your hopes for other generations of climate activists? What would you like to see as a result of this discussion going forward? David, let's start with you. And then we'll go to Eliza and Helen and then Tony, and then I'll finish up.
Well, I'm so inspired by Helen. I want to take her to heart and make it happen in our community here. It's really I am working on a team to pull together an event here in the San Francisco area, bringing youth and elders in for a summit. And I'm taking inspiration from this gathering, and we're involved with youth as exemplified by some of the things that Helen talked about regarding doing it together and letting, and that Hazel has mentioned about letting involve them in the planning process from the first stage. And we're looking forward to this October event, and we hope that it can be a model for elders and youth all across the country, or if not the world. Not that we don't have ambitions, but at any rate, it's just very satisfying to hear what you're all doing and how well it's working for you.
Eliza, do you want to go next?
I mean, I hope to just continue the collaborations. I mean, my hope for the future is that, our kids know that, know that we were fighting for them, and that we're in this together. I mean, I think building a strong friendships and group, within your group, and then collaborating with all these other groups. I mean, it's just, it has to be that way. We all need to participate. So I feel a lot of urgency about that. And everybody, anyone and everyone who wants to be involved, we need you. So that's my message.
Those are such important points. Thanks so much for bringing that up. Okay. Helen?
Yeah, I think my hope for the future, I hope that, like, at least in my country, but hopefully across the world, that we're going to see over the next couple years, and I mean really soon, like this year, next year, mass mobilizations and actions across the country, in cities and towns, and people really coming together. And I have been seeing it. I've been seeing it growing, and I think that the people who are here, how many people are interested, is a testament to how there's definitely enough energy and enough people who care to do that. But this is the beginning of a really important protest movement. It's not the beginning really, but it's the beginning of, I think, the end of the time we have to protest for it. And I think that's when you're really going to see these mass mobilizations pick up, at least I hope, because we have the capacity, the energy, the experience across generations to do this, and they're being organized. It just takes a couple Google searches or reaching out in your own community or just getting outside and joining it to know that it's there, and that there are people who are doing everything they can to organize, to tell CEOs, to tell decision makers, because there really are a handful of people in this country who are making these decisions, and they need to know that the entire public is unified in how it's not okay and how we don't have any time left, because to continue to pollute, to continue to burn fossil fuels, it's just not feasible anymore. And future generations right now deserve so much better. They deserve to a like green transition, a just transition off fossil fuels. And that's my hope. I hope to see that. I hope to be a part of that. I hope to be able to tell my kids that I did everything I can. And I hope that they have a livable and breathable world as every human being should. And I think that we can achieve that. And I think that I don't really believe in the doomsday perspective, because once you're involved, I think you can see that it's tangible, that we have every solution, that there's so much legislation that's either proposed or on its way to getting passed that can do so much. We don't need a miracle. We just need people to put in the work. So yeah, that's what I hope to see. I hope to see that work get done.
That is so incredible. Thanks so much for bringing those things up. Tony, did you want to
Sure.
take
Yeah.
that question?
Thank you. Yeah, I'll talk about a couple things. It's kind of been mentioned a little bit. I'd love to see this collaboration continue. I think that that's something that gives me hope, is the process, the planning process that we went through to actually put this session together. We've been meeting for a while now, and without realizing it, I think we started to realize it as we went, but we were tasked with creating an intergenerational conversation while at the same time having an intergenerational conversation. And so in a lot of ways, we were putting into practice a lot of the things that we talked about here today. And, talking about these things is important, right? But it should never end with just talking. So that's something that, our mentor, Deborah Rowe, talks about a lot. It's like, conversations are great, but let's move towards action. And so I think that that's really something that I'd like to see come out of this session here today, is some kind of action. And so I think, we're going to get into that with the action party, obviously, but I'd like to challenge people who have been tuned into this call and, are into this conversation, to take some of what you've learned and go out into your communities and think about how you might do intergenerational work differently. Might you do something different in creating more space for young people to show up to the conversation? Might there be more opportunities to share different stories with one another, right? I'd love to see something come out of this that actually has a real world impact in the work that you all do in your communities. And so that's my sort of challenge to folks in the call, and my hope for, continuing action. So thank you.
Much of the people that are on this call are probably boomers. And we were the generation, we were out there on environmental issues, on the war, on civil rights, you name it, we were out there. And in the early 70s, we actually made a lot of progress. We had the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act. We had all kinds of things that started to happen. We ended a war, a lot of things happened during that time. But as we started to get older and had children and jobs and responsibilities, our activist days kind of started to wane, and we were not as out there. When I was thinking about what is the key to ongoing united action that's going to make progress, but keep that progress, I just thought, the secret sauce is moms and dads and kids and young kids and youth and elders and all of us working together and forming teams. I did a challenge at one of our climate strike marches recently, and said, you've got lots of kids here at this march, but their parents and grandparents aren't here. And you have a lot of grandparents at the march, and their kids are not here, or their grandkids are not here, and moms as well. And I challenge every one of you to start to think about your family group, your neighbor group, the ways you can bring those people together and start to really form climate action teams within your family, where, you know, you can show up and meet with a legislature, a state legislature, a mayor, you know, a school board member, or whoever, you know, with grandparents and parents and kids together. And maybe your family unit, it may be an adopted family unit. You know, you don't always have your kids or grandkids want to do it with you, but you can always find somebody else and be that surrogate mother, or grandmother. You know, I know a lot of the kids that we work with in the climate movement here in Arizona call me grandma, you know, because I've adopted them as my grandkids. And you know, it's really important that we foster those teams and find ways to make those teams a regular part of our action. You know, I don't ever really want to meet with our legislative people without having young people on the team, because the conversation is so much better. So I challenge everybody that's on here today to please make sure that you talk with everyone around you, talk about it, and find ways that you can come together and work together. So I think we probably do. We have time for a question from Quest.
If there's any questions that you see that you think we need to squeeze in, we can do that.
I'd also mentioned that if we wanted to get the action party started, once we get that going, that would be a great time to do some Q&A as well.
Yeah, let's go. Do you want to go ahead and close this out, and then we'll start the action party, and then if we can continue to talk and
awesome. Yeah, that'd be great.
Excellent.
Yeah, no reason to end the conversation just because we got some actions going. We could definitely do both. So hey everybody, I'm Matthew from the Climate Action Now app. Many of you know the drill here on this little mini action party that we're going to do. I'm just going to share my screen here, pull up this little screen, and now is the time for everybody to take out their phones, hold it up to the little weird looking box on the right hand side here, and take out your camera. Open your camera app like you're about to take a picture, but instead of taking a picture, you're just going to hold it up to this box, wait for the little yellow bubble to pop up that says Climate Action Now, and then click right on that little yellow bubble. And that will take you into the Climate Action Now app, which many of you already have, if you haven't, or to the App Store or Google Play Store. Download the app, and after you've downloaded it and created an account, which shouldn't take too long, you'll be taken to a intergenerational climate action campaign with about 100 actions in it. Obviously, you know, we're not going to get through all 100 actions, but we could get started, make a dent in it. And I see some people already are, because our goal tracker is ticking up on the left-hand side there. In real time, we can see we're making progress toward that goal of 800 actions. So great job, everyone. And I will just leave this up for a little while longer. Make sure everybody has a chance to scan the code. Anybody has any technical difficulties, don't let that stop you. Just let us know in the chat. There's actually, I have two of my new colleagues from Climate Action Now here with me, Celia Tandon and Liz Bridgewater. And between the three of us, we should be able to get you sorted out, help you get on the app. So don't let technology stop you from taking action tonight. We've got lots of tricks. Yep.
And for anybody who does not have the access to a phone or a tablet and would like to take action, Ariana is dropping a number of
Yes,
other
thank you.
actions in the chat box right now that you don't need a tablet or to be affiliated with the app. So you can take actions through the chat box, or you can take actions through the app.
Absolutely.
Tonight. The biggest thing is that we just want you to take some actions before you leave the room tonight.
100%. 100%.
And real quick, I just want to kind of do a little bit of wrap up here before we start losing people out of the room. And then we can go back to our action party. You know, almost 10 years ago when we started Elders Climate Action, we really started with a group of elders that were very, very, very concerned to make sure that the youth never felt alone again in this climate fight. And we continue to be just as committed to that mission, if not more committed to that mission than ever before, in ensuring that we will be here to mobilize elders, to stand side by side and be there in action with all of the youth organizers that are out there, dedicating their time and their energy so that y'all don't have to feel alone. I know that that there has been a sense of feeling that the burden has been placed on younger generations to solve, and we are here to make sure that it is not your burden to solve alone. We want to solve it with you. And so I just want to extend a really big thank you to each of our speakers, especially to Helen and to Tony for giving us time out of your busy schedules, not only to be here tonight, but to also plan these sessions and to have these intergenerational conversations with us. Helen, I know you were also part of those earlier in the fall as well. So we just really appreciate all of the time and energy that you have given to these intergenerational discussions. I also want to give a big special thank you and appreciation to Ariana. Ariana Jenna, who is a consultant with ECA, who has spearheaded a lot of these intergenerational conversations and organizing all of us and herding all the cats and bringing us all together for these great discussions. And she's been the one organizing the meetings and the details and the social media and, you know, all the bios and all the things. So big heartfelt thank you to Ariana, and we hope you're enjoying your time in Europe. And if you haven't listened to the Way Forward Regenerative Conversations podcast episode with our two panelist moderators from our two sessions, Sarah and Tony, both from Change the Chamber Lobby for Climate, partners of ECA, please put that on your to-do list. We'll make sure that gets dropped in the chat. We are proud to be now a co-sponsor of this podcast series. So we will be increasing more and more climate relevant content on that podcast series. And it's just a really wonderful series. So we hope that you will listen, and we hope that you will follow the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. You can listen to it as a podcast, or you can watch it on YouTube as well. They now have the podcasts on YouTube. So back to the action party. It looks like we're really moving. We're ticking up. We've already 100 actions already in just a couple minutes here.
Yeah, you guys are doing great.
Can you tell us a little bit about some of the actions that we might find in this?
Absolutely.
In this QR code?
I sure can. So I think everybody's hopefully gotten a chance to scan the QR code, so I'll take my screen down. But I will replace a minute here. I'll replace my screen, my little screen, with the goal tracker. But I wanted to go over to the list so I can actually look through what we've got here. So Liz Bridgewater, our wonderful new Director of Outreach, put this campaign together. Do you want to talk at all, Liz, about just sort of the selection criteria for the actions that you chose, how you put this campaign together?
Yes, definitely. So I thought it was really cool when starting to design this campaign, coming into this event, how you guys are all working on the intergenerational component of the climate movement. I think that's really valuable and necessary. So as I was going through the big database that we've got at Climate Action Now, I was trying to think about all the different types of ways to plug in people of all different ages. So in this campaign, you'll see things relating to high schoolers, to colleges, anything I could find with parents and like pension plans and retirement. So trying to cover the whole scope of life and all the different ways that it intersects with climate change. So hoping that some of these actions in there are exciting for you. And we've added in actions hosted by Elders Climate Action as well, specifically. So thanks so
Yes,
much
yes.
for all your efforts tonight.
Right. So the first 4 actions, I believe, are the ones that we found on the ECA website as the current actions that you guys were recommending. So those are the first 4 that you'll see. Pulling up the list of other actions here. I see that, yeah, as Liz said, we've got a bunch of actions related to schools, school boards, colleges and universities, sort of on the, obviously, the youth side of the intergenerational spectrum there. Also on the youth side, we've got some actions relating to the many youth climate lawsuits that are a thing in this country, which is great. The Juliana case, unfortunately, kind of in not the greatest place right now, but we've got some actions standing with Our Children's Trust to try to urge the Biden administration to come to the table and settle anyway, even though the case has been officially ordered to be dismissed. We have on the other side of the intergenerational spectrum, stuff related to state pension funds, as Liz said. We have one for almost every state, I think. So if you scroll far enough, you should find an action to your state pension fund, to your state treasurer, asking them to update their state pension funds to address climate risk. Let's see, what else do we have? And then just a number of elders climate actions that have come in over the months. We have a number of wonderful volunteers from ECA that are making actions for us. Dr. Marianne Krasny at Cornell has done a ton of great actions on the Farm Bill and agriculture, which is her area of expertise. We have Bill Murphy in California doing a lot of stuff on methane and refrigerants and other super pollutants, which he calls the quick wins. He likes to highlight them as quick wins, which they are. We have Francis Stewart, who's done a lot of great actions on voting. So you'll see a number of actions, and then they should be labeled with the Elders Climate Action logo, so you'll know that they are from an ECA member who actually put them in there. Let's see, what else do we have? The AARP, we have a few actions asking the AARP to promote climate a little bit more, which I know was a big issue a couple years ago, but I think they've actually made some progress on that. I think they've actually been doing better in highlighting that for their members, which is great. Have an action to the Girl Scouts. We have an action. Let's see, about the American Climate Corps. That's a big new thing, employing young people in these clean energy jobs, many of which require zero experience. The first class of, I forget how many, but it was an impressive number that they just hired the first wave of young people for that. And that's a huge thing that's been in the news just recently. So that's really good that that's going on. That's what I'm seeing at the moment, but overall in general, hopefully you'll just be seeing actions that are related in some way to either youth or elders or something intergenerational, anything we could find that had kind of that a particular generational angle to it. We tried to put into this campaign. So with that, I'd love to turn it back to the panel and answering any questions in the Q&A that have come up.
I have a quick question. I'm gonna throw out to Hazel. Hazel, can you tell us a little bit about whether or not actions like these actions that we're taking in Climate Action Now app, like letters to our elected officials, do these have merit? Do these have power? You're muted. What do we hear from those elected?
Absolutely believe they do. You know, one of the things that that all of our offices keep a record of is the number of comments they get, number of emails, number of phone calls, etc. And they keep a tally and what it's about. And I'm hearing over and over, both from the EPA, from our president and vice president staff. You know, I haven't heard directly from them, but about how the fact that they're getting literally hundreds and thousands and hundreds of thousands of comments has allowed them to take a way stronger approach to their rulemaking. I mean, we've heard this from Michael Reagan at the EPA. He said we couldn't have gotten the climate rules through, except we got 1 million petition signatures, letters, and emails, etc., regarding that. And that was just such a totally beyond any experience that we've had before event that they had to listen. When they know that there's numbers like that are supporting and helping, you know, fighting for them after the rules come out to make sure they stay in effect, it helps to counter some of the lobbying efforts that are going on to keep us stuck with fossil fuels. So, you know, I can't stress enough that every single day we need to take some kind of action. You know, it takes 2 seconds to go to Climate Action Now and send 2 or 3 letters, or email or call up one of your representatives about something. We just need, or sign a petition. We need to be doing that. I just want to also acknowledge that Pam put it in the chat, or actually John Harms put it in the chat, that we have had a really, really positive outcome on the youth versus gov, the climate, the youth action in Hawaii. That particular lawsuit was settled, and I'm probably not the one to talk about it, but was settled without actually, it was ready to go to court, and it was settled before it went to court. And the youth plaintiffs will be working with the state of Hawaii to revamp their transportation system. That's a huge win. We had a huge win in Montana, and that's why it's really important we all work together on this.
And Montana is actually, I think this week being, their case is being reviewed by the Montana State Supreme Court. So any support or any energy to send there, please do. Let's keep uplifting their voices and their efforts there. Well, we're at the half hour. How about Matthew, can you give us a quick update on how many actions we are at?
Yes. Oh my gosh,
tracker.
we are at 596, unless maybe it got wedged. Nope, 597. Okay, we are at the half hour, but come on, guys, we got to get these last 3. Like, we can't stop now.
Pull out your phones.
Now. Okay, 2 more, 2 more. Okay, one more.
One more.
Is it gonna be? Oh, we did it!
Yay!
You
all right.
Are amazing.
Once
again, we have hit our goal. Just in the nick of time. It's not even 8:31 yet. So we got it right just in time. We made it to the finish line. So congratulations, everybody. Keep on taking action. There are many, many more actions where these came from. New ones added every day. So keep using the app, and we're excited to come back and see you guys in the next monthly meeting.
It's a great place for, you know, if you're waiting for the bus or you're drinking your morning coffee or you're waiting at the dentist office. Great place, 5 minutes of action every day. And thank you again to all of you. Thank you, Eliza and Helen and David and Tony and Mom. Thanks for everything you've done that led me here. So thanks again to everybody out there taking action. Tap your neighbors, tap your family, get everybody you know involved. It's going to take all of us. So get out there. Have a great evening, everybody.